Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown. Today, we are starting a new category of games, and that category is games you can complete in one night. And the first game of this category we will be discussing is Inside. All right, Pete, why don't you give us your initial thoughts on Inside?
Yeah, so you may or may not have heard of this game before because it was critically acclaimed, and it's on some of those dopey top games of all times lists, actually. And I myself really enjoyed playing it, but I will say the game may not be for everyone. It's basically a puzzle game, but the puzzles are pretty easy, I'd say, for the most part. So really what this game relies on is what I call the Fogo de Chao factor.
You'll have to explain that later.
I'll explain it right now. You go to Fogo de Chao not just for the dinner, but for the experience. And so if you look at Inside as just a game, you might be disappointed, but the experience and how it makes you feel while you're playing it is where it shines, I think.
All right, Tom, what about you?
First, I just want to say that I think that could be said about a lot of games and also a lot of things in life too. But anyway, yeah. So I had never played or really had this game on my radar. But I'm glad that we got to cover it because I did enjoy the experience. Without giving too much away, I think they created like a really interesting atmosphere here, and it was. For a game with no real dialogue, I feel like I'm just repeating what I said about Stray, but well, that did have some dialogue. But anyway,
But those were very different games.
they are different games, yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you wanted to keep playing the game, not only because it was a fun time, in my opinion, of course, but because you wanted to kind of understand what was happening in the world and who was this character that you're controlling and what is his end goal and what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, and I'll just say I'll actually keep my initial thoughts to actual initial thoughts and say I thoroughly enjoyed this game. But be warned, it does kind of make you feel sad as you're playing it and as you finally finish it. At least that's what it did to me. We'll get into it more as we continue the episode. Inside is a puzzle platformer that was published and developed by Danish studio Playdead. It was released on June 29th on Xbox One and Windows, shortly followed by its release on July 7th, 2016 on PlayStation 4, and eventually made its way to the Nintendo Switch. For those that don't know, Brothers and Boss Battles Video Game Showdown is our podcast here where me, Anthony, and my two brothers, Pete and Tom, discuss video games, new and old. The way the show works is that we pick a genre or category of games, and each week for 3 weeks, we each decide a game and talk about that game that fits within that genre or category. We talk about the gameplay, graphics, music, effect on the gaming world, and more. After those 3 weeks are up, we have our fourth episode in that grouping called our Bro Down episode, because we're brothers, where we have a courtroom style debate, each of us defending the game that we chose while attacking the other two, and ultimately declaring a winner. All right. Inside. So this is our category of games you can beat in one night. This is the first game of that category. And this is probably about 4 hours-ish to beat. So if you're having
Yeah, that sounds about right. People who know, like, who've played before know what they do, and they could beat it in probably less than 2.
Yeah, I haven't seen any speed runs, but I'm sure this is something that could go quicker once you know some of the puzzles. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're having a thorough night of gaming, it's certainly something you could get done in one night.
Yeah, for sure. I was really into it, so I got probably 80% through in one night, and I wanted to keep playing, but had to stop because I had an appointment.
Yeah, so it's it's Playdead's, the developers' sort of spiritual sequel to Limbo, the game from 2010 that was also fairly critically acclaimed. And it's in the same vein where it's like a basically a 2D puzzle platformer, but it puts you in this sort of dystopian world that really made you, the user or the player, really interested to see what happens both to the character and within the world. And that was absolutely how I felt playing this. It's it's like spooky, and it also almost has like dark comedy elements to it at times, but it's
But yeah, I mean, when you say spooky, I mean it's I don't want to give the idea that it's like
a horror game.
yeah, it's more like
Well, dystopian.
yeah,
It's
just
like
the
it's like
right word.
Eerie?
depressing, eerie, depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like yeah, I mean essentially, I guess if you want to give the spoiler warning,
Oh
which
yes, spoiler warning.
yeah, the game is really kind of about the story and the puzzles too, which we'll get into. So there's lots of spoiling going around. Um, but yeah, I mean, essentially, your character that you're playing is effectively being hunted throughout the whole game by people and like guard dogs, but not monsters or anything like that. It's
Eh, I don't know. I mean that like Siren, that character called Siren in the water.
yeah, I mean, I guess, but
I mean, it's not a monster. I think we're gonna just have to, kind of go for it as far as the explanations are concerned. But I think we need to set it up a little bit. So, like, it
yeah,
starts off with you sort of dropping down like a little cliff, and you're clearly running away from something trying to get you. And very, very early on, like 30 seconds in, you're walking right, you're side scrolling, and these guards with sort of like these masks on are looking for you, and you kind of see that they're sort of rounding up people into a truck, and then they come chasing you, so you have to escape them, and they have guard dogs, and there's a very narrow escape at the end, and eventually you keep progressing and you get to a farm and you start learning a little bit more about like these parasitic type things that look like they're controlling like the pigs at that farm, and then eventually people. um, you keep going, you keep going. You see kind of like these indications of human experiments, by this whatever it is, agency, corporation, whatever it is. You don't really know about that so much, but there's kind of these like shells of people, and they sort of. I mean, some of them you kind of use as helpers, and others of these experiments are more hostile towards you, or at least seemingly hostile, like that siren in water.
yeah, they're like, uh, I mean, they're kind of how I would describe them. They're kind of like zombie-like,
Hmm.
um, but not like the ones that want to eat your brains. Just
Yeah, exactly. Almost like lemmings. Like they're either being controlled by other people, or there are parts of the game where you could like bear this sort of mind control looking helmet, and you can actually control them to aid you in getting to higher areas or breaking barriers for you to progress. Um, but it's presented in a very like monochromatic sort of color palette too, so it kind of gives to that depressing sort of feel to it, an eerie sort of feel. Like it's very sort of get like dull colors, and everything kind of looks the same.
Yeah, but uh, not everything kind of looks the same, but not in like a video game sense where it's like this giant like wooded area, for example, where it all looks the same, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, consistent art style.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. So I didn't, I don't know, I didn't get the sense that that siren character was necessarily on the same side as kind of all the humans, like the
Hmm.
guards and the scientists.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, the reason why I say hostile is because there are parts of the game where if she catches you, you lose, you quote unquote die or whatever, and have to
Oh
start that
yeah,
part over again.
yeah, she's trying to kill you. Yeah,
Yeah. So, but obviously that also becomes part of the story too, because there's a part where she does capture you and you can't avoid it, and then
right,
that's
right.
which we can get into in a little bit, but for the other parts of the game, if you're caught, it's it's the video game equivalent of game over, and you got to start from your last checkpoint.
Yeah. So opens up a discussion for a couple of things. First thing is, I really feel like dying is the best part of the game. Like the death animations really, I feel like take the experience and your feelings to another level. Like I feel like those are the most emotional parts.
That's interesting because it's not a top tier sort of graphical game, so it's not like a gory sort of death scene or anything like that. It's just you mean more emotionally, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like for example, when she grabs you and she drowns you, it's
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah. It's like
intense. Like it doesn't look
struggling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't look cartoony
yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah, the way what is interesting and a good point you're making is that like I think there's early on if you die, like one of the ways you could die is you're kind of getting shot at, and it's just like the way that your character slumps over.
Right.
It is sort of like realistic, and even though he's like a monochromatic, cartoony sort of character.
Yeah, definitely. That is part of what I'm talking about for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned was, when you die, it takes you back to the last checkpoint. There are like, I think 60 or more checkpoints. Like it's really like, you know, a
Yes.
puzzle and then you get to the next checkpoint, puzzle, next checkpoint,
Yeah, yeah. Basically,
which
every
is good.
anytime you clear anything, they give you
Yeah,
a checkpoint.
which is great, especially for a game like this, because it really is about the experience and the story. And then there's no point in making you redo a puzzle that you already figured out.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's good. It moves the game along. It does kind of allow it to be in this category. Um, some might say that that's easy, but or it makes the game like a little bit easier. But
Yeah, I don't really feel like it does. It makes the game a little shorter. I don't know if it makes the game a
yeah,
little easier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's less of a slog, and you could really kind of focus on the world and the story. I think it keeps the pace good. It's probably a good decision to do that. It really does. Yeah, so there's a couple of basic moves you do, and I use moves as like you could walk and run and climb. That's
dragging.
drag things, yeah, and then use that.
Jump.
Yeah, you could jump. It's a little clunky, but I think they tried to make it like realistic in a way where you're not jumping over huge caverns and
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like a superhero or something. Yeah, and I think just making the character like a young boy in this very dark and scary world was, a choice that makes it very emotionally charged as well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If it was like an adult,
Yeah, it might not
wouldn't it
have.
feel the same?
Yeah, but the gameplay. I mean, that's basically it. And you're using your, movements that basically any human has to get through the levels. And we'll talk mostly, I think, in this episode about the puzzles, and the different types of things the game makes you do. Then it'll become clearer, what those controls actually do for you. But I mean, I thought the controls were good otherwise. I mean, again, a little clunky on the jumping, but no complaints really here.
I had no issues with the controls in a game like this.
You kind of get, so I had mentioned you start off sort of in this forest and then you get to this farm. Eventually, you kind of get into this facility where you see more of these experimented on people and other creatures, and you'll see scientist type people and so forth. So you kind of start learning that this isn't some sort of like accident. It's not like a Walking Dead or a Last of Us in a way where it's just like this virus wiped out so many people, and now it's just like, you know, survivalist people and zombies that you're dealing with. That this seems all very purposeful. That these group of scientists, whatever it is, are experimenting on people for some reason. Um, what becomes an interesting question is like, why does you as your character, why are you going in that direction? Like, do you stumble across it? Were you purposely going there? Were you being controlled to go there? And that's some of the theories on the sort of meaning of the game or the plot that we could discuss. But I think first we should talk more about either more gameplay and the puzzles.
Yeah, I agree. To kind of focus there now. So one thing really, really, really early on, I think I was just kind of learning the mechanics of the game. It kind of tripped me up. Was there was basically a car with its headlights,
Hmm.
and like I must have died at least 5 or 6 times there. But I think basically you just have to wait it out. Is that what you have to do? And then it'll drive away.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting now. Yeah, so it's a pretty simple puzzle, but that was the first one that kind of gave me
Yeah.
some issue.
Yeah, I think I kept trying to like outrun it, but you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, there was some stuff like that where it was like I guess like your instinct tells you to like just keep running, but really you have to think about it in a more smart way.
Yeah.
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 I mean there were some like not strictly trial and error, but you're kind of meant to die and then
Like what do you
try
do
something
you
else.
do you remember one, or do you kind of just like kind of remember thinking that?
There,
Well, I mean this one for one.
yeah,
Mhm.
there was one other one where when you're like pretending to be one of those zombies and you have to like jump with them and
Oh yeah, that was a great puzzle.
yeah, that was cool. I mean, it was different than
Yeah.
others. But, like it wasn't really puzzly, but it was more like timing and dexterity and coordination and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But towards the end of that sequence, I guess like the guards notice or something, and then they start basically chasing you, right?
Yeah, and you would
Or
just
like
have to run, I think.
they come after you. But yeah, it's like you kind of like don't know. It's like, do
Am
I
I
like just
fake
keep
it?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
faking, or am I actually supposed to like run now? And
Right.
Yeah.
there's like a lot
That's
of times when you just try to run, you don't like you're not fast enough.
yeah. They made it realistic in that sense
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
too, which was
Just
good.
fine.
But yeah.
Then it's like always like, well, should I actually run here or not? So like, I guess to your point, there was like some trial and error stuff like that. Like I definitely died at that point the first time, and I was like, okay,
Yes.
I guess I just have to run.
Yeah, I definitely remember not getting through that part unscathed. I just don't remember if it was like it might have been multiple times. I might have like screwed up the jumping and the turning and then not run at the end. Yeah, so for those that don't know, there is a part where you sort of fall through a roof and there's a line of these almost like lobotomized people that are being processed, it almost looks like, and you have to kind of pretend you're one of them so they don't capture you. So, and there's certain movements. It's almost like a Simon Says a little bit kind of a thing. But that was cool. That was definitely a unique puzzle.
Yeah, it's a memorable one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked how it was unique in that sense.
Another
Yeah.
one that I really liked, or were you gonna move on, or
No, no, go ahead. That was only one
another one that I
puzzle.
really liked? It's a very maybe you don't even it's not even really a puzzle, but it really it really made my heart rate go up. Is when I think you get in basically like an elevator, and then it kind of just falls abruptly like into the water, and now you're stuck in the elevator, and you basically have to lift the door on one of the sides like open and then swim out and get air because you can of course drown for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
So that one really was intense. I thought it really made you feel like I'm stuck and I'm gonna
Yeah.
drown in
Mhm.
5 seconds.
Yeah, it's like if you're in a car and you
Crash into the
crash
water.
into the ocean, like
Yes, it is like that. Except it's an elevator.
Relatable.
but yeah, and it's
It
like
can happen in real life.
it's like one of those things where it's like
It's like,
there's like time pressure.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. A lot of the stuff in the water was I felt time pressured, and that brings us back to sort of like the puzzles with the siren, which essentially were just like, it was just like make her stay in a position. Like if you would look at her, she wouldn't chase you. But if you just jumped into the water and tried to swim, she was faster than you. So you had to kind of time it, and especially more towards the end, where you would like there were ropes and stuff, so you'd have to like climb above the water on one side of a platform, then jump off onto the platform, jump in the water, and then try to swim through a gap, um, you know, and hit a button to close the door before she got you. And this game did very well at like even when you did the puzzle like presumably perfectly, where it would make it look like you were just about to be caught, whether it was by the siren in the water or whether it was by the dogs in some of those
Yeah.
chases. Like they really made you, they made you allowed you to complete it if you did everything you needed to do to complete it. But it was very cinematic in that respect, which is just more kudos to them.
Yeah. No, great point. Great point.
one of those was really difficult for me. The to figure out one of those siren swimming puzzles.
Yeah. So was
This one
it the one?
we have to like basically. I think this actually may have happened twice, but it was like one of the I think it was the last one where you have to like so like there's a door that you have to press a button
Yeah,
and it you have to open it and then you have to like basically what you have to do is then go all the way to the other side, jump in the water so that she swims back over to the left. Then
Yeah.
you jump up on land, go back to the other side where the door is open, then you can swim
yeah.
through and then press the button on the other
Yeah.
side.
Right. But
Yeah.
there's
That's
one of them
that's the
with
one I
like the
was
moving.
describing. I guess I didn't describe it well, but that was the one I just
Yeah.
described.
But I think Tom's right. I think there was like two instances of
Maybe,
Yes.
but there was
something
what
very
you
similar.
didn't. I don't think you had to jump in the water, but there was one where there was like on the left hand side there was a rope hanging down, and you
Yeah,
could.
Yeah.
that was a
And it
different one,
moved.
I think.
What's
I
that?
didn't think that was the first one.
Oh, okay, all right. So then, but it was like you just had to kind of hang off the rope and like dip your toe into the
Right.
water, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
that would distract her enough where you could. Yeah. All right, Pete, you were talking about.
No, that's what I was mentioning. That rope that moved. So you would swing on it and just dip your toe in, and then you would swing back.
Yeah, one that I remember, and this one was like difficult for me to figure out what you had to do. And once you figure it out, it's not difficult. But like the one where there's like a gate and you could climb up and across the gate, but there's like the dogs chasing you. So you essentially had to like climb over onto the one side of the gate, have the dogs all come that way, and as they're just about to get you, you climb up over again, start pulling away at the
Yeah,
barrier you have to get through, and you have to do that a couple of times in order to completely break the barrier.
yeah.
So that was a little annoying.
It
But
was
the
annoying in
dogs
this.
like it talking about like making your heart beat. Like the
Yeah,
dogs kind of did that to me too.
definitely. Yeah.
And then when they catch you, they're like tearing
Yeah.
your carcass apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one, I think maybe I died once. I'm not sure, but that wasn't too hard to figure out. The annoying part of that was that once you did figure it out, you had to do it 3 times or whatever
Yeah.
to pull
Yeah.
out all the planks.
Hmm.
Another one that stands out to me, and it's weird because I don't know if I really figured it out. I was just kind of doing things that seemed natural to me, and I got it. But it was when you have to essentially collect, I think like 19 of those
Oh, the people.
zombie-like people,
Yeah.
and then like so they have to stand on the plate to open the door, like that giant plate to
Yep.
open the door.
Yep.
So you kind of collect them in bunches. 4 here, 5 there. There's one that is dead, basically. You have to just drag
Yeah.
onto the plate. But that one stands out to me because you're using those people.
Yeah.
And then,
Whenever you,
as you collect, like you weren't strong enough to do certain things, like maybe open a door or
Mhm.
pull away something like that barrier or some sort of barrier or whatever. But then once you collected and I'm saying the word collected for lack of a better word, but some of the people, then they help you say open the door, like lift the door open or something.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like those ones.
So that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you had to use that like helmet, I felt like those are some of the trickiest ones to like control the characters to get them to do what you needed, like the
Yeah.
NPCs.
Yeah. There was one where it's basically like there's two large boxes or cages, let's call them, because
Mhm.
that's what they are on either end of the screen. And so if and like there's one of those zombie-like characters in each of those cages, and so when you go into that mind control helmet and start moving, you have to like kind of time it in such a way where the cage is closed so they don't go back into the opposite cage. I'm not explaining it well, but I don't know if you remember that part.
Oh
There was
yeah,
a there
there
was
was
a
one where you're controlling s-
Both of them at the
two of
same
them at the
time.
same time. Yeah,
two, and
they
yeah,
can step on. Each has to step on like a plate or something,
Yes.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes. So
yeah. That was.
you had to sync them up, and I think the key
hmm
was that you had to like just focus on moving one, then close the cage, and then
Yeah, yeah.
move them both or something.
That one was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Another cool thing with these people were that they would. I think, Ann, you mentioned they catch you, but then they could also like hoist you and throw
yeah,
you.
right,
If you had to get somewhere far away.
exactly. Yeah, that was interesting too. Yeah, it was cool. And then there were those puzzles sort of towards the end of the game where it was like in water but zero gravity, so you had to kind of like sometimes you had to like move a box and like float it upwards and then hit a button so the gravity positioning would change and it would go to a platform. I don't know if you guys remember those, but that one took me a little bit.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. I mean, the puzzle that sticks out as the most difficult to me was one of those where first
Yeah.
you're in a room and the box is in the box that you end up needing is in the room before that room. So, at first I spent 15 minutes trying to figure out the puzzle without that box. So there was no way I
Yeah.
was going to do it. And then I started to go back to try to figure something else out, and I got that. And then,
And then there's the whole parts where you're in that sort of like ground underwater sub, which was a cool thing. You could like break through breakable walls with that, and even that you had puzzles trying to outrun the siren again, and she would be able to like if she caught it, she would break it apart and take you out and drown you. So that was those were that was interesting too because you had a whole nother element now of like there were ones where you swam in the water, and then there was this where you're kind of moving a little bit quicker and have this, in this vehicle.
yeah, those weren't my favorite parts of the game, but it was cool to switch it up. I really felt that the beat, like the first half of the game, let's call it, it really just felt like you were being chased or like, something along those lines. I don't
Mm.
know. But then kind of in the second half, it kind of developed more and like, the puzzles, if that's what you want to call it, maybe some platforming. It made you, it kind of started to add to the story, the experience. So one in particular I'm thinking of is like, there's a couple of like parts where it seems like I don't know if it's being like bombed or there's like
Those are
some
sonic
sonic
booms.
waves,
Yeah, they're
sonic
sonic waves.
booms.
You thought
Yeah.
when we had spoken about this off the podcast, you thought they were gunshots, but they weren't. They're sonic waves essentially.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and you needed to be behind like iron or
Cover. Yeah.
steel
Yeah. Yeah.
cover
Yeah.
to not get blasted apart. Yeah, those are some of the toughest. And there was that one where you had that giant gear that was moving, and you had to kind of like make
Yeah. In
sure
the
you stayed
circular
behind
motion.
it. Yeah, that was one of the most difficult puzzles in the game.
I don't
But
remember that taking me that long.
yeah, me
I
too.
certainly died a lot there, just like
Yeah.
trying to get the positioning right. But
Yeah, because that was the one thing you could do. I mean, that one kind of combined a lot of things. It was like figuring out the puzzle, which was essentially you could stop that gear and then move. So you had to kind of stop it so that you'd be behind it when the sonic wave, you know, cast out, but giving yourself enough time to follow behind it because it moves a lot faster than you do. But it also had like the dexterity and the coordination part of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. The critical part was the timing and those sonic booms or whatever. Those had like a cadence to them, so you knew when they were coming, like a
Yeah, I think it was.
pattern.
I think it was every like 6 seconds or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, they were on a straight pattern, so it was figure outable. It wasn't like unfair. All right, so there's more puzzles in there, obviously, but we kind of covered. I guess I would call them our quote unquote favorites since they're the ones that stuck out to us and the ones we decided to talk about. So there is more to talk about. We'll talk a little bit of the music and sound and stuff, but um, I mean, I guess we could do that first, just because rather than leave that to the end. And there really isn't much sound. Um,
Well, I think there's sounds like, footsteps and, sound of dragging objects and whatnot.
Yeah.
Breathing. I thought that was a big sound.
Yeah. So I thought that those were good. Added to the atmosphere, and I want to say I like that there wasn't that much music in the game.
Yeah. Well, it made it more realistic. Yeah, and more.
Yeah, like they added, like they had like, these moments where they would have some kind of music going on, but it wasn't just like, as you're trying to figure out a puzzle, they have like a jingle playing in the background.
Right, right. Yeah,
Uh,
which was good. I mean, because it really lent to the dystopian atmosphere. And like it was just like if you were sort of learning something big that they kind of wanted to signal was big, there'd be like a little swell of keyboard or like in keyboard in the sense of just like a pad in the background or like a string sound maybe, but
yeah,
nothing like
a crescendo.
musical.
Yeah, so I was reading an interview actually from the sound person in this game. And one thing that was very strange that is apparently the case is that the sound and the music was like the noises were passed through an actual human skull.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
How they get access
Just,
to a skull to do this?
I mean, I guess I don't know how they got access, but I'm sure a lot of other things get access to skulls for educational purposes or whatever else, you know.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
So
is it like they played this music or like the sound effects through a skull and that's how they recorded it?
yeah, I mean, he didn't get into the technical details of exactly how he did it, but yeah, basically the sound.
Hmm. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And this, I want to mention something else that wasn't part of the interview, but kind of follow follow through on the interview stuff. He also mentioned how the like sound output actually controlled certain things, namely the breathe, like the chest movements of the boy. So like that was always like synced up, where he
Hmm.
was like more heavily when he was more heavily breathing, like when you could hear it, and his chest was moving,
More.
more. Yeah,
Hmm.
that was cool. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
little things that they, a lot of little details that they emphasize, and which makes sense for a game like this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
is apparently there is I know neither of you played Limbo, but I did see a YouTube video where apparently there are like Easter eggs in this game of like things that look like things in Limbo. So if you guys ever get a chance to play that, or if we ever play it as part of the podcast, it's interesting.
Yeah, I will say after playing this game, I'm interested in going back to play Limbo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the last thing I want to mention on the sound was it was cool, and I thought this is so unique and amazing. But it was cool when you were underwater, how everything got muffled,
Yeah.
and I felt like it really did sound like how it would sound like if you were underwater.
Hmm. Yeah. So Yeah, all right. So I think we should talk about sort of like the plot, like what happened. Yeah, I had started sort of going to the beginning, the forest and then the farm, and then you kind of like on the cityscape where you start seeing more of these, zombie-like people. And then eventually get into this laboratory where like the experiments seem to be happening, and some of it is flooded, some of it is, overground, and all of that. So you keep eventually you keep moving, you keep going, you keep side scrolling and platforming and doing what you need and figuring out puzzles. And then you eventually enter into this large chamber, which in itself is another puzzle that you have to try to figure out, and you eventually do. And then you're in water again. Oh, and this happens. I think this is an important part. And this is a fairly big spoiler. So again, if you've listened this far and don't want any more spoil, then cut out for a while, play it, and come back. But there is a point in the game where the siren catches you in the water, and you can't escape it. It's part of the game, and she essentially drowns you, but then puts like it looks like almost like the helmet that you use to control things like on your chest, and essentially brings you back to life. And then at that point forward, you can breathe underwater, and I think you can then control those like zombie like people like without finding a helmet at that point. So, but the main thing is, you can breathe underwater, and clearly, something's going on now, and you're sort of maybe becoming more of one of these experiments again, if you weren't already. And anyway, you eventually then get to this big chamber where all of these scientists are looking at something, and it's kind of cool because at first you're on the outside of that, and then you kind of sneak in to get to the inside of it, and there's this giant blob in the middle of it, which looks like it has like various body parts coming out of it. It's a thing called the huddle, and this seems to be the big project that all of these scientists are working on. And you sort of start breaking away the things restraining it, and it eventually consumes you, and you become part of it, and then you break away, and then you break into the facility, and now you're this giant, massive blob, kind of just breaking through walls and running people over, and but still sentient enough to like figure out puzzles because you start now having to figure out puzzles using this blob. And it's just very like weird. Like it's just weird that this boy that was put through this harrowing adventure is now part of this giant like monster blob that is just running things over, and eventually breaks through the facility and winds up on the beach of this little like um lake or whatever it is, and then that's the end of the game. It's just
Yeah,
it's crazy because it really does feel like even that ending is depressing. Like it's sort of satisfying in that like you're no longer maybe being, you got your revenge, quote unquote, against this group, but then you're kind of just like laying motionless as this blob on the side of the beach. What'd you guys think of that?
Yeah, I thought that I was disappointed
Hmm.
that the boy did not end up surviving, basically. I mean, I guess you can interpret it in different ways that maybe he did end up surviving and just as a part of this blob now, but I don't know. I guess I was hoping for for like a more optimistic ending.
More superhero like ending.
Well, not necessarily, but like,
my idea of the blob, like it seems like it's just kind of how the boy kind of becomes part of it. It seems like others before him also became, part of it. But
Yeah. I mean,
that part I haven't really hammered out in terms of, did it just start with one person, and then what's that about?
yeah, it's sort of interesting because I don't know what I thought initially. Like I'm kind of trying to think back to like when I just played it and beat it, and what did I think of what it was. Now, like I think while you're playing through most of this game, at least I thought it's like you were being chased, so you were just running to escape, and then sort of accidentally came across this facility, and now you are as the character is learning about everything for the first time and seeing what's going on and why the world is the way it is. So I think that was my sort of initial thoughts of when I started playing and like maybe even through my, through the playthrough. But then as you start thinking about it more and 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 stuff, it's he was very actively trying to get into those places, and it seems that he was trying to actively get into that facility because at some point you kind of do escape all of the people and the dogs chasing you on the outside, and then you're still kind of going forward. And I think it eventually look, I think at the end of the day, it's sort of like this blob was controlling things from the outside, and that this boy, was being controlled actually to come and maybe free this blob because that he's the one who freed it, and then became part of it. And so there's that. The other theory I've heard, which can kind of make sense, is that this was essentially a trial run for this boy to see if he was, I guess, fit enough to become part of this blob. So they, put all these people chasing him and all of these obstacles in the way. And, if he made it through, he was strong enough and great. He's part of like the survival of the fittest. And if he didn't know, well, we'll try a different experiment. You guys have any similar or different thoughts?
I'll just say that I kind of like at its surface interpreted the story the same way you did at first. I mean, like just kind of like he's trying to escape. He happens upon this facility, and then you know whatever. Um, I mean, afterwards, yeah. I mean, I think I would probably lean more towards the first theory that you described, in that he was either being controlled or um like it can, it's hard to say. Like something could have happened
Hmm.
off screen where like he basically or kind of like a revenge thing, like like you alluded to earlier, where or like maybe like freeing this blob, like he happened to know about it from some
Mm,
events off screen that we didn't experience in the game,
yeah.
would kind of like foil the plans of these scientists. And
Right. Right. It could have been that. Like he knew the people that are now comprising this blob, and like maybe they knew he was going to try to break in, and that's why they were trying to eliminate him.
yeah,
Because when they catch you, they kill you, like the guards or the dogs. So it wasn't like they were trying to use him as an experiment. It's almost like they saw him as a threat, and it was just better to get rid of him than to make him one of the lobotomized zombies or make him part of this blob. So you know that's an interesting point.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. But so, what is the
I almost
theory?
yeah
What is the theory on what the scientists are doing? Right, because they're observing the blob essentially, right?
yeah
And they have him contained.
hmm yeah
So,
I
are they experimenting or creating something with mind control, and they know he's controlling the boy, and then kind of like you said, like survival of the fittest type of thing, where they're trying to take him down, the boy, like they know, and then once they take him down, they know the blob is going to send somebody else, and then they're going to try to take him down, and only like the smartest are going to, make up that blob.
I mean, there's a million things because it could be if the scientists are thinking that it obviously backfired because the boy was able to
Right.
get the blob out of there. I mean, unless that's part of the plan, like you, I guess it's kind of hard to tell how nefarious they are. Like, is there a problem that they're trying to solve and they're kind of using maybe these dubious methods, or are they just trying to? I mean, I think another theory is that they're just trying to create this sort of hive mind control apparatus for like the elite of society to control everyone else,
yeah,
kind of a thing, and especially some of the lobotomized zombies were like wearing like sort of like almost like workman clothing, and so that could be a key as to what they're trying to portray as the difference between like those that are controlling and those that are being controlled. the thing we didn't talk about. So I mean, those are the theories. That's essentially the plot. The middle, the ending. Um, it's a great emotional experience to play it. I feel, and it does kind of make you feel sad. I think like no matter how, like you mentioned Tom about like him, having a more of a happier ending, but I could have felt like there were other ways to also like I can't really see a completely happy ending here. Um,
Yeah, I wouldn't say happy, more just like
he
uh,
survived.
he survives and then has like a very unclear path ahead of him, probably filled with hardship too, but
Yeah.
at least still alive kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I kind of thought
Or
that
maybe,
too.
or maybe something where he died, but he clearly accomplished something good, you know?
Yeah, but I think that kind of the developers, they're kind of getting at that like this is the world, like there is no good anymore. So I think like an ending would like could have been him escaping, like he figured out what's going on, but it's almost like pointless anyway because there's no one that he'd be able to tell this to that it would matter, and he's gonna be chased more. Like I think in a way that could have almost been a more depressing ending, even though he would have quote unquote lived.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know, not to totally derail the conversation, but in what we're talking about and other theories I've read online, I don't really see a good explanation about that siren character.
I think it was just another. Well, I think it could be this. That's another experimented character, just like the Huddle is, which is that big blob. Um,
That's what
and
I thought.
yeah, and it's almost like all of these experimented odd things are trying to turn against those who were experimenting on them, like the scientists essentially. So that siren is trying to kill you, but really to give you actually more power. You can now swim underwater and control these other beings without the helmet and all of that. So it's like those
Okay.
powers are what you essentially use to get into that area with the blob because the blob is filled with water. So you wouldn't have been able to free the blob, the huddle, without the siren quote unquote killing you. And I think
That's
one
fair.
of the
That's
theories
fair.
is that this blob is the hive mind that is able to kind of control everything else.
I just don't get why every other time she catches you, she kills you.
Wow,
You know?
that's just part of the game.
Probably just,
Yeah, that's what. Go ahead, Tom.
no, I was gonna say it's probably just part of the game.
I
Yeah.
was probably just part of the game. We're talking about how the whole game is about the experience and the story, and that just totally doesn't make any sense into the
Well,
context of what
they
we're
wanted
talking about.
to. I guess they wanted it to be another interesting puzzle until they needed to progress the story. I don't know. They could have made it maybe a different character or something. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't accept that explanation.
Well, that is, I believe, the explanation. It's just
So what do you think about like at the
Wait,
end?
hold on. Who says that's the explanation? Because I don't think the
it
creators
seems
ever
pretty clear.
explained
It seems pretty clear that would. Anyway, Tom.
I
at
was
the
just,
end. You were saying,
yeah, yeah. So I was just gonna say like when you're playing as the blob in the end, or the huddle, um, and it seems that there are some scientists there that are like trying to help you or
Hmm.
kind of seem on your side, right? So
Yeah,
do we think that they were actually like on your side or they're just trying to like help you so that you leave, basically?
yeah,
and don't destroy them.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
kind of think the latter. Like, there's the
me
one that
too.
opens that door for you, and like,
Yeah,
yeah, and then the one that helps you with the pump box, which is
Yeah.
another puzzle we didn't really talk about. But um, I thought that, but I also thought it could also lend itself to the theory of, you know, for whatever reason, good or bad, they're trying to create this massive creature to do something, and they're helping you out a little bit, because they want it to survive, even though it's like destructive. It's like, I don't know. It's like you create a bomb, it's going to create a lot of destruction, but it's like, I guess you do it for a reason that you hope is good. That might have been a similar thing with this. I don't know.
Maybe.
yeah. I still don't know what they were trying to accomplish with the experiment or what they anticipated if it was in fact that the strongest, or smartest, whatever, bravest people, made it to the huddle to make that thing strong, what was the end goal? And did they, you know,
Yeah.
expect a situation like that where it kind of became strong and smart and escaped?
Maybe it's like AI. It's like think
I
it's
feel like
think it's good and helpful until it's Terminator.
Yeah. Everything comes back to AI.
I don't know. I feel like that. Like, why were there so many zombie-like people around?
I
Hmm.
think maybe they were the ones that were not good enough to become part of this blob, but like, you know, so
But would they have been killed?
well,
Right.
they essentially
Exactly.
were. And
No.
you see how
No.
they helped your character. They similarly could have just been like these mindless things that helped these people in charge.
But
So it's
if they were also partaking in this experiment to see who's the fittest, wouldn't they have also been killed by dogs or
but
gunfire
Yes.
or
Yes. They would have.
maybe the whole like the scientists are allowing this boy or others to get to the blob is not what it is because
What do you mean? That's
I,
not what it is.
that is a theory, but that may not be the theory. I think the more likely theory sort of kind of goes into the fact this part that we didn't talk about. So there are these like black orbs throughout the game that you could go in and break. And they really don't do anything unless you get all of them. And if you get all of them, I guess you replay again, there's this hatch on the farm, and you go down it. There's like this sort of underground secret bunker where there's a computer with one of those helmet control thingies, and then like a panel on one side. And if you break that panel, you go limp at your character. So to me, that's implying that you have been being controlled the whole time, perhaps from this underground bunker, and then you destroyed their ability to control you. So, whether it's whoever it was, it could have very well been this blob because he's hooked up to all those things, before you free him, was controlling you to get to him to kind of break him out. And that's why everyone's trying to stop you.
I think
Like
that's
it's
a
almost like a
good.
contamination type thing, like it's or not what the blob thought, but what like all of the other people thought. Like we can't let this boy or maybe any outside thing get to them unless we vet it or whatever. And maybe they were using all of the lobotomized ones to create this blob, as opposed to more independent thinkers like this boy that's able to figure out puzzles. So it's not the scientist letting him go to have this very strong being become part of the blob, but maybe it was like we can't let this very strong being become part of this blob because then it's going to have a mind of its own and we can't control it anymore. So I think that is more likely the theory of the
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to color when you're explaining sort of that alternate ending, the good ending, I guess. One, he pulls the thing and it seems like the power goes out. Like,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. And then just to clarify, you said he like goes limp and he basically looks like he's in the stance like those,
Yeah,
you know,
the
zombie
zombie.
like.
Right. That's true. That's another thing. So maybe like if yeah, maybe he's been being controlled this whole time, but by who?
Yeah. And if it's the huddle, it still goes back to what I asked earlier. There must have been someone before the boy that got to the huddle and, became part of it.
Well, maybe it needed 20 bodies to
Yeah, right.
break
No,
out
exactly.
and they had 19 and whatever.
Right. There's a final straw or something
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
exactly. It's interesting. I don't know that we'll ever get answers because,
Yeah, I don't think
that's
so.
part of the lore. It'd be great if
yeah.
they came out and the developers had said what they thought it should be, but that, any interpretation is possible, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that secret ending and the fact that they made it, hard to get and a secret ending is got to be very telling. that there is like you know that there's some sort of aspect of being controlled, even as you as the protagonist, who you seem to have free will and the ability to do things. Like maybe that just wasn't the case.
No, no, I agree. Maybe when their next game finally comes out, maybe to hype people up, they'll explain this
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
So
that would be cool.
actually, talking about that a little bit, I think like 9 years ago, I think they said they were starting on, and this is Playdead,
Hmm.
was starting on another project,
Hmm.
and there's basically been no news, no nothing about it. So I don't know if we're gonna get one. And apparently, some of the key people left Playdead. So one of the co-founders left and started a studio called Jumpsuit, and they released a game called Somerville, which is, I think, similar. It's like a puzzle adventure type game.
Mm.
So that game came out in 2023. It wasn't as acclaimed as Limbo or Inside was,
Yeah, it's
but
interesting. I actually saw Somerville, like I think it might be free on the PlayStation Plus, and I was like, oh, that looks good. I didn't realize that um what's the name of the company? Jump Ship was, a former like
oh,
person
okay. Yeah, yeah.
from Playdead, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that game is on my radar now. But then also uh the lead designer and some other programmer started a company called Geometric Interactive, and they released a puzzle game also in 2023 called Cocoon, and that got all nines and tens. So I'm really
Hmm.
interested to play that game.
Hmm.
So if we never get another, a new game from Playdead, at least maybe those could th quench our thirst.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else before final thoughts?
We usually do stats at the end. There's no real stats in this game, but do you guys happen to remember how many of those? I think there were 13 of those
Yeah, the
orbs.
or
If you could quickly check, because basically
how do you quickly check?
all the achievements and trophies, I think, were
Oh,
getting
oh,
those.
right, right, right. I think you're right. Um, so very
So,
interestingly, I after I beat it, I did go back and played for like maybe 20 minutes, 20 more minutes, like a new game play.
oh,
And
interesting.
on that second run, I did get one that I
Oh, okay.
that, that I didn't. But I think, and I will check my stats, but I think I only got one during my initial playthrough. So all in all, two.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll go while you guys are looking up. I got four.
I got two as well.
Did everyone the one that I went back and got was the one like in the city where you see them like sort of being marched, all of those the lobotomized zombies being marched, and like you're jumping from one building to the next, but you could like kind of go down a fire escape a little bit, and then there's an opening there. That's the one I got on my second playthrough.
Okay, yeah, I may have gotten that one. So, were you guys clued in on the fact that the yellow wires kind of indicated that one of them was near? Oh, okay.
Did not know that.
Yeah,
No.
so knowing that helped. I don't know if maybe I looked that up, found that out on the internet or whatever, but knowing that is helpful, obviously.
Okay, so I'm looking at my achievements. I have three. So
Okay.
I guess I got two my initial playthrough, and then the one on the brief second playthrough. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting because for a game that's it, there's nothing that discourages you from exploring. One, so that's good, and two, there's not really a ton to explore. It seems, but
Yeah,
somehow,
they
you
fit
know,
in.
yeah, and we missed most of them.
Miss most of them. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that is interesting.
yeah.
All right, final thoughts, guys. Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this game is I think it's quite good. I think it's worth playing because the story is so kind of open-ended. I think like even though we just talked and, quote unquote spoiled things, I think there's still a lot to gain if you haven't played it already. You know, it's intentionally ambiguous, like what's going on and the story and the ending even. So, you can totally have a, play through the game and formulate your own opinions about what's going on. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, just like we said, great atmosphere in the game, although, a bit depressing or a lot depressing at times. But yeah, the puzzles were fun. They weren't like so simple, but also they weren't frustrating. So I think they were at a good level. Some obviously harder than others. Um, yeah, and quick game. You can technically beat it in a night. So yeah, I think this is a good one. I would definitely recommend it.
All right, yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, I would certainly recommend it. I'll start with that. It's a great quick game. It really makes you feel like if you do have like this, I guess, relationship with video games where it's not just all like, sort of surface level and you want to sort of have see emotions and things like that during games. I mean, this game is certainly there, and it is fun, and it does get you sort of thinking about the story on that level, but also thinking about like the puzzles and what you have to do to actually get to the end. And the puzzles are a little bit easy, but again, they're not super simple, so still worth playing. 100% recommend. Very, very good game. All right, Pete, what do you say?
But at the beginning of the episode, I maybe threw some of you off the scent when I said the game might not be for everyone. But with that being said, I think everyone should play this game. So I definitely
Even
recommend
if
it.
it's not for you.
Yeah. So let's see what else. Like Tom started saying, like we went through the story and the theories, but really the game is a lot about the experience and experiencing for yourself. So, it's just not the same hearing us talk about it, watching someone play it on YouTube. You have to experience it yourself. Also, we're mentioning, and you mentioned it's not that long of a game. So that also, factors into me really wanting to recommend it to everybody. I think everyone could kind of fit this one in. And then, for me personally, all the games I just mentioned, and including Limbo now, they're all on my radar because I really enjoyed this game so much. So, I think that should speak volumes too. So stay inside and go play inside.
Fun. All right, everyone. That wraps up another episode of Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown. This has been our discussion of Playdead's Inside. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and X, Twitch, and YouTube at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles. And like and subscribe wherever you get this podcast to get all of our content as soon as it comes out. Be sure to check us out in 2 weeks when we will be discussing our second game of the category of games you can complete in one night. Until then, take care.